Welcome back, everyone. It's FNHusa57 here. I'm back on Neverwinter on the Xbox One, and today I will be bringing you a discussion and what's best video. So this will be the Lightning enchantment versus the Dread enchantment, and we'll be discussing which one is actually best. So, of course, we have Mod 11 here on console. We've had it for several weeks. And with Mod 11, that brought new changes to a lot of the old enchantments, adding additional bonuses and changing the way that they worked. Thereby, everybody thought that the Lightning was actually going to now be the best in-slot enchantment. So, as you can see, I'm on my Control Wizard, which is 4K. This is my main character. And it is personal preference which enchantment you use. So after extensive testing through T1 dungeons, T2 dungeons, raids, world bosses, you name it, this is the conclusion that I have come to. And it may differ for every class and a little bit based upon your personal preference and playstyle. The Lightning, as you can see, I have both enchantments at rank 12, which is the highest that they can currently go in Mod 11. And Lightning, you deal an additional, basically at Transcendent, it's an additional percentage of your weapon damage as lightning damage with your powers. The damage can chain 3 times at 100% chance for each chain. If there's no other targets to chain to, you do 33% more lightning damage. Additionally, all cooldowns are reduced by 2% for the first lightning strike, plus an additional 1% for each chain. Alright, that's interesting. And the Dread, which used to be absolutely best in slot for Control Wizards, your encounter powers strike with an additional 75% critical hit severity. The attacks cause dread, dealing 50% of your weapon damage as necrotic damage every second, reducing the target's defense for players and decreasing their damage resistance by 4% for monsters. Basically, you can read it, you know what the enchantment does. So, which one is actually best? Now, in testing, I have run the exact same group with the exact same dungeon multiple times. Of course, there's still variables, and it's not going to be 100% accurate because we don't have a DPS tracker. But on the Control Wizard, it actually looks like it's relatively tied between the Lightning enchantment and the Dread enchantment. Now, you might be wondering why I say this, because for certain classes, that's not the case. For the Great Weapon Fighter, it's hands down Lightning enchantment. Lightning is better than the old Vorpal enchantment, which used to be best in slot for the Great Weapon Fighter. However, with that being said, certain classes like the Trickster Rogue, the Hunter Ranger, and the Control Wizard that do the majority of their damage from encounter powers, it's not so cut and dry as to which enchantment is the one to go with. So with that being said, when you get to endgame and you're buffed, you're going to have a pretty high crit chance. It should be 70% or higher. And now this is referring to specifically for the wizard. Not every character is going to suffer from the same thing, but with the wizard, we have a very nice thing called Storm Spell. And 30% of the time when you crit, you call down a lightning bolt dealing additional damage. So in combat, I reach 100% crit chance without being buffed by another player. That's just with my companion stones and the bonding rune stones proccing. So basically 30% of my attacks hit an additional time. So it's really worth it to have that crit. It's not worth it to swap out your critical hit chance for straight power. So it's still worth it to keep some crit. That means that the power scaling feature from the Lightning enchantment is beneficial because now they do scale with power, and it's a complicated thing. You can actually go onto the ARC forums and get the whole breakdown of how the scaling works, but that's besides the point. Also, the damage from the Lightning enchantment has a chance to crit because it's an additional damage. So what I have found, and I'm about to show you, is depending upon the dungeon, any of the lower content, Malabogs, Kessels, Shores, Valindras, Lost Mouth, even Temple of Spider, You really don't notice much of a difference between the lightning and the dread enchantment. This is running multiple runs with the exact same group, the only change being which enchantment I run. I actually noticed in this lower level content that I did more damage with my dread enchantment by several million than I did with my lightning enchantment. The lightning was better at clearing mobs, but the dread worked better on the medium or elite enemies and the bosses. Simply because of how fast they die, you don't get as many hits. Now, as you go up in the content, like Cragmire, Grey Wolf, Castle Never, you start to notice that the dread does good damage, but the lightning's starting to do better damage by several mil. When you get to FBI, eventually when you get Spell Plague unlocked, or you start doing the raids, Demogorgon, SVA, MSVA, or Tiamat, you notice that the Transcendent Lightning does considerably more damage. In MSVA, I do about 20 to 30 mil extra damage with the same group with that Transcendent Lightning as I do with the Dread enchantment. And that's because of the power scaling. Since there's so many enemies in there, the dungeon lasts so long, you have multiple hits. And the more hits, in short, the more damage that you will do. So I'm going to go ahead and show you in combat. Let me equip my lightning. And we'll go ahead and put it over on the log so that you can see exactly what the damage breakdown is. Now, of course, as soon as I get Companion's Gift, I have 100% crit chance. So the damage from my lightning is critting, as opposed to the damage is just a bonus when you do crit with the dread. Now, these little enemies, it doesn't really matter with. As you've seen, they died really quick. So, I'm going to go back up, and you can see the damage board. Self, critical hit. Your lightning weapon deals 8,000 damage, lightning damage to the green dragon fang. And then I have magistrates, and then I have the lightning burst damage, and then another critical hit, your lightning damage, 12,000 damage. Because you look at that, and you're like, wait a second, how can it be 12,000 damage? Because 75% of my weapon damage, well, my weapon damage is only 1,885. But it's because of that power scaling bonus and the crit scaling bonus. So when you add all of that together, you actually do a lot of damage. Now, the bad thing about using the lightning enchantment in solo play, basically for farming, is the fact that the damage chains. So you will pull a lot of enemies that you don't mean to pull. So in low level content and solo play, I actually prefer to use my dread enchantment versus using my lightning enchantment. And that's why I say it's not quite cut and dry. Like you'll see, let me go ahead and get procced, have Companion's Gift, and we'll just go through and eliminate this group of enemies so you can see what the crit damage is, because the crit damage is much higher. Now I can go back and look. What we're doing is looking for like the individual critical hit. Storm Spell, 64,000 damage. And of course the type is lightning. Scroll up higher than that. Critical hit with Conduit of Ice, 24,000 damage. Critical hit with Conduit of Ice. Critical hit. Basically everything is critical hit. And of course I have the other little buffs, mostly using critical hit. I'm trying to scroll up a little bit higher because of course you have lifesteal and all that. But you basically have your Storm Spell, Overcharge attack gives you hit points, and you can go through and basically see all those individual numbers. Now, they died faster, in my opinion, with the Dread. So for solo content, like doing your dailies, Sharandar Dread Ring, even Icewind Dale, MSV, or not MSVA, but the Sea of Moving Ice or Sami, all those areas, I prefer to have the Dread enchantment on because you only hit the enemies in that one particular group, as opposed to hitting everything. I'm going to go to one of those areas and show you now. Alright, I'm now here in River District, which is one of the new areas and can be a little bit more annoying areas. And I'm going to show you why I don't like using the lightning for farming. So I have this group of enemies down here that I need to kill, but depending on where you stand, you'll see that that damage chains to the group of enemies up there. And I really did not want to have to fight that group of enemies. So in specific zones and specific areas, it can actually be very annoying to use the lightning enchantment as opposed to the dread enchantment. All you have to do is attack the group of enemies that you want to kill, and that's it. You're done. Easy. So I would say at the end of the day, while everybody is worried about the fact that they must have and obtaining as fast as possible a lightning enchantment, it's actually not super needed. It is needed and it is great at endgame. But I would caution you before you run out and try and buy or make a lightning enchantment that for solo play, it's more annoying, and in the lower level content, it's not really going to give you as much of a bonus, and you're not going to see the bonus that you would initially expect to. If you're playing a Hunter Ranger, Control Wizard, or Trickster. Now, I will say that I did test this enchantment on my alt characters, which I have about 2.2 to 2.3k alts for almost every class except for the Trickster. And I tested it on my Great Weapon Fighter, my Hunter Ranger, and for shits and giggles, I even put it on my Paladin and a couple other ones. Now, on my Great Weapon Fighter, it made a world of difference compared to the Dread. On my Hunter Ranger, it helped out. It definitely did some extra damage, but I have a Trapper build on my Hunter Ranger, so it's more encounter power focused than just straight, basic melee damage. So my Dread was actually doing quite a nice amount of damage. Since they're 2k characters, or just over 2k, of course I didn't have as much power, so you wouldn't notice quite as much difference. In short, at the end of the day, I believe that you should just take a look at the enchantment, take your time. Early game, mid game, almost is more favored towards the Dread enchantment, simply because solo play is a lot easier, and you won't notice quite as much of a bonus because your power and crit aren't as high. When you get towards the end game, when you're farming FBI, MSVA, even at the point you're farming CN, that's when you'll notice the difference, and the lightning enchantment definitely becomes better. But until that point, it's honestly a toss-up. And for me, I am actually going to be keeping my Dread enchantment and using my Dread enchantment for low-level content, anything below Master Temple of the Spider, and then switching to my Lightning enchantment when I run Cragmire, CN, Grey Wolf Den, FBI, MSVA, Tiamat, things like that, where I have more people, I have more power, and I can do even more damage because the dungeon lasts longer, so you get more hits, because every hit that lightning procs off of, whereas Dread only procs and boosts the critical severity of your encounter powers, not your at-wills. Hopefully this information helped you out. If you have any questions or comments, anything like that, please feel free to leave a comment. If you want to know what testing I did, what dungeons I did, whatever. If you want to share your opinion on what enchantment you like better for your class, sure, go for it. Leave a comment. Otherwise, smash a like button, share the video with your friends, guildmates, and of course, subscribe for more content. Until next time, stay frosty.